Okay, so I think we can start reading. So, as I said, it is Pallu's, so she can start reading. All this difficult result.
All this difficult result can become possible only if there is an immense conversion, a total reversal of our consciousness, a supernormal entire transfiguration of the nature. There must be an ascension of the whole being, an ascension of spirit chained here and trammeled by its instruments and its environment to sheer spirit free above, an ascension of soul towards some blissful super soul, an ascension of mind towards some luminous supermind, an ascension of life towards some vast super life, an ascension of our very physicality to join its origin in some pure and plastic spirit substance. And this cannot be a single swift upsoaring, but like the ascent of the sacrifice described in the Veda, a climbing from peak to peak in which from each summit one looks up to the much more that has still to be done. At the same time, there must be a descent too, to affirm below what we have gained above. And on each height we conquer, we have to turn to bring down its power and its illumination into the lower mortal movement. The discovery of the light, forever radiant on high, must correspond with the release of the same light, secret below in every part, down to the deepest caves of subconscious nature. And this pilgrimage of ascension and this descent for the labor of transformation must be inevitably a battle, a long war with ourselves and with opposing forces around us, which, while it lasts, may well seem interminable. For all our old, obscure, and ignorant nature will contend repeatedly and obstinately with the transforming influence, supported in its lagging unwillingness or its stark resistance by most of the established forces of environed universal nature. The powers and principalities and the ruling beings of the ignorance will not easily give up their empire.
Okay, very almost discouraging. So it is so difficult to task. So we'll read it and we'll see what he's saying. And keep in mind one thing, the gradation from the highest level of absolute light to the slowly descending grayness and then finally absolute darkness at the bottom. So what is possible in the light is not very possible in the lowest. It is possible, but with a huge amount of effort. Okay, just remember this. And that is the reason why in Sri Aurobindo yoga there is a constant reference to ascent and descent. In India until now, most of the yogas are concentrating only on the ascent. Take your consciousness to the higher levels of consciousness and remain there. Don't worry about the lower because it's dark and it's impossible to change. We keep repeating this, but it is so important because for thousands of years that has been only the ascent, and not the descent. Okay? So, and what is meant by descent? Because even Ramana Maharshi had the question, when someone asked him, when he was talking about ascent and descent, he said, what descent? The divine is already here. His presence is here everywhere in the universe. But that's not the one that he spoke about. He spoke about it coming and becoming exactly the light in the lower should be a reflection of the higher. It is here, it is there, but it is hiding. It should not hide. That's what should mean. So I read each sentence. All this difficult result can become possible only if there is an immense conversion, a total reversal of our consciousness, a supernormal entire transfiguration of the nature. Nobody is telling you that the yoga is easy, particularly Sri Aurobindo yoga, not at all. Look at the words. Immense conversion, total reversal, not partial reversal, total reversal, and super normal. It is not normal, it is absolutely super normal, entire transfiguration of the nature. So you can imagine he is using such words which can actually discourage you also. But that's the reason why they take the easier option of only ascent. So there must be an ascension of the whole being. The ascension of the whole being is, what it means first of all is your consciousness must come out of the body mind life, must be released, and you must realize your moksha, that I am not the body mind life. But having gone to the higher level and experienced the light, the power and the bliss, you have to bring all that down into the practical field. That's not so easy. It's very similar to when an engineer or a doctor goes to college and becomes a MBBS or PhD or whatever. He has got the theoretical knowledge. Now he has to become an intern, or he has to become an apprentice. And for 3-4 years, it's the same in every field. Even if you are if you have done your accountantship, okay, you have to have first an apprenticeship for 2-3 years. Only after that. So, what is this apprenticeship or internship? What you have learned theoretically, you have to now apply down below. That takes a little time. That's exactly the descent that Srinath is talking about. All that you have experienced at the highest level, theoretically, it's not theoretically strictly in that sense, because your consciousness has experienced it. It's not theoretical for the consciousness, but it is theoretical for the body-mind life. So now the body-mind life also has to be trained, and that's a period of internship. Tremendous struggle. And then there can be a complete change. When the light descends, the body-mind life must become capable of receiving that light which is coming into it. And for that, you have to purify your mind, purify your vital and even the body. But until now, the body has not been transformed, but one day even that should be possible. Okay, so very, very similar to the process of applying your theoretical knowledge to the practical field. And you gain so much in the practical field. Experience counts a lot in every field, whether you are a banker or you are an accountant or you are a doctor or an engineer. The more experience you have and you have dealt with different situations, now you know what to do. There must be an ascension of the whole being and whole being. That's the second stage. First of all, the ascension only of the consciousness. Later on, the whole being. Just 1 second. Yeah. Ascension of the whole being and ascension of spirit. That's exactly, the spirit means your consciousness chained here and trammeled by the instruments. A trammel is a fishing net which catches fish. So it's a net that actually limits it imprisons you. So your instruments, which are the body, mind, life, are actually not letting you go free. You are trapped like a fish in a net. Okay, that's the whole point. Then he's saying, not only by your instrument, not only by the body, mind, life, but even by the environment. Okay, the environment also is the same. There is matter, then there is life, and there is mind. So you are chained by your own instruments of body, mind, life, but also the conditions in the physical world don't allow you very easy access to go up. That's what Srinath is saying. And the environment. To sheer spirit free above. So you are a prisoner below, but you have to go to sheer spirit. The word sheer means only spirit, no mixture. Sheer spirit, and which is free above. An ascension of soul towards some blissful super soul. Your soul is also divine in essence, but it should not be only in essence, it should be in actual fullness. So that's what Srinath is saying. The ascension of soul towards some blissful super soul. The super soul is not potential, it is the divine. An ascension of mind, so he's telling you everything one by one. What should ascend? An ascension of mind towards some luminous supermind. An ascension of life towards some vast super life. An ascension of our very physicality to join its origin in some pure and plastic spirit substance. Note the word pure and plastic spirit substance. That is what the is referred to as the Sat. The Sat is the pure and plastic spirit substance. It is so plastic that it can mold itself into anything. It is the pure spirit substance which is used to create the world. And it is so free and so plastic that it can take any form. Okay. So in those words, when you picture them, it becomes so clear everything. So your mind must rise to the highest level. When can it rise to the highest level? When it becomes pure. And your vital also has to become pure, and then it can go to the Shakti aspect of the divine. And your body also should become absolutely subtle. That's what Shanti is saying. All this cannot be a single swift upsoaring, not easy at all. But like the ascent of the sacrifice described in the Veda, now he is talking of the sacrifice because he is talking of the Veda, Yajna. Okay. So what is that Yajna? Constant offering of everything you have to the divine. Whether you are eating, sleeping, or working, or having emotions and having thoughts, everything is only for the divine. That's the concept of sacrifice. Yajna, described in the Veda. A climbing from peak to peak, in which from each summit one looks up to the much more that has still to be done. So it's not a simple thing. It's from one level to another level, another level, another level. At the same time, there must be a descent too, to affirm below what we have gained above. That's exactly what I was saying. The experience of the soul, the consciousness above, must be brought down into the body-mind life, which is at the lower level of darkness. So that's not an easy thing to do. It's very difficult. Because the lower has to become fit to receive the higher. If your cup is dirty, how will a clean water come inside? It won't replace it. The water itself must be pure below, then only it can mix. Otherwise it can't mix. At the same time, there must be a descent too, to affirm below. Affirm. Shyam is very fond of the word affirm. Positive. To confirm. Okay. Below what we have gained above. The theoretical knowledge for the body-mind life must become an actual knowledge for the body-mind life. It's not a theoretical knowledge for the soul, but it's a theoretical knowledge for the body-mind life. What you have gained there, you have to bring it down. On each height we conquer, we have to turn to bring down its power and its illumination into the lower mortal movement. Here he is using only one sentence. In Life Divine, he has got a whole chapter on how to do this. Ascent and integration. Okay, that's the chapter. Here he is dismissing it in one phrase, not even a sentence. Okay. On each height we conquer, we have to turn to bring down its power into its illumination, into the lower mortal movement. So every time you go, you have to bring that down into the lower. In fact, this is what he was practicing in Savitri, na? I think you have heard about it. That every time.
I was about to.
Pardon?
No, this reminded me of the line from Savitri only, that on a height is to looking towards greater heights.
That's right. Every time he rose to another level, he rewrote Savitri, the first canto. Okay? Canto 1, book 1, canto 1. He rewrote. I think I've told you once how many times he wrote, you know? They're all there in the archives, all those versions.
Mm-hmm.
You won't believe, 50. 50 times he rewrote, because it was an experiment he was doing. How does it change the lower? Let us see what the effect of the higher consciousness is in the lower. So that is what he was doing with Savitri. He was using it as a means of ascension and also descent. Okay, so that's exactly what you have to do.
Rangada,
Yes,
Rangada, this
yes.
50 times was within how many years?
Oh, he started doing the Savitri. He started actually Savitri even in Baroda, but he left it in the lurch because after he came to Pondicherry, he was not doing much. It was in the late 20s or early 30s when he revealed to Amal Kiran that he was actually writing Savitri. And it's very interesting, the story. You might as well listen to it. What happened was, Amal Kiran was sending poetry to Sri Aurobindo, if you remember, and Sri Aurobindo was saying, oh, this is coming from the psychic world, this is coming from the intraconscious, this is coming from the vital world, this is coming from the higher mind, this is coming from the overmind. He used to say things like. So Amal got interested and said, what is this overhead poetry and how do you recognize it? Why don't you give me a sample of your overhead poetry? So Sundar said, okay. So one day he sent him some lines, okay? And Amal read from Savitri. And Amal saw those lines and he was absolutely flabbergasted. And he said, from where is this poetry? From what have you done? He said, this is from Savitri. Okay. Then he said, why don't you give me more? So Sundar started sending him and told him, this is absolutely between you and me. Don't tell anybody. He says in the 30s or late 20s, I think it is early 30s. Okay. So Sundar started sending him in a sealed envelope. Okay, Savitri. Okay, and it was not published at that time at all. And who used to carry that envelope? Nolnida. Okay, and Nolnida used to see that Sundar is sending regularly these envelopes to Amal, and he felt very curious. Okay, but Nolnida is Nolnida, so he didn't ask him point blank. But with his questioning eyes, he asked him, "What is all this about?" You know, like that. He asked, what is this you are getting all the time? Then Amal Kiran writes to Sundar and says, Nolli is very curious to know what you are sending me. Should I tell him? So then Sundar says, you can tell him only him and nobody else. So that
No, there is a little difference because this is something what Amal himself told me. He
okay.
said every time Nalini Da would come to give him the packet, he would give and his eyebrows would go up and up.
That's
So
what I
he
said.
wrote to Sri Aurobindo saying that every day when he gives me this envelope, his eyebrows are going higher and higher, and I'm scared they may, burst up or something. So what should I do? And Sri Aurobindo said, okay, it is okay, you can take him into confidence.
That's what I said.
Nolnida never asked Amal, okay, what is inside? No. It was just his eyebrows going up. And
That's
this
what
is
Rangada
something
said.
what Amal personally told me.
Yeah.
So I think it's more authentic.
No, I'm saying the
That's
same.
what-
I've not made any.
That is exactly what Rangada told.
Yes.
That's what Rangasudha said, na? That he
Just
didn't
this expression
ask, but
only.
his eyes were questioning.
Yeah, that's right. You said eyebrows, and I'm saying with his eyes. That's the only difference. But what you are saying and what Amal told you is all in writing. Okay, it's all in the letters. so it's very
Yes, it has been published in the this letters on Savitri in the later edition. That is CWSA. It is there. I've read it there. The question and answer both are there.
Yes.
The question what Amal Kiran had asked and what Sri Aurobindo had answered. It is there in the CWSA letters on Savitri of section.
Tarika was asking when he was doing this ascension with Savitri, and so the question came up.
I think that date will be there in that checkup.
Yeah, I'm not 100%, but it's around that time because I think Amal came when he was in the late 20s. He was a young boy, and he came and saw Sri Aurobindo, and then he
1927 to be precise.
27. There you are. So late 20s and early 30s, this thing started. So,
No, but Rangada, I asked how he changed, no? I mean, different versions of Savitri. That took how long?
oh, I think quite a long period because afterwards he started very seriously doing Savitri. All this is there in the, I think towards the end of the book. Okay, many letters also are there, and there he explains when. It was a long period, very long. In fact, right up to the last days, Sri Aurobindo was still dictating Savitri, and it is unfinished. Okay, so it is a long, long time. It took many, many years for him to do that, and the Book of Death is even incomplete. Only Canto 1 is there, but Canto 2 and 3 are not even written now. So it's stretched over a long period. So, okay, so let's get back to our what is the page? I've lost the page.
132.
132. Yeah, that's right. So that's what we're doing. So they're saying here, climbing from peak to peak, in which from each summit one looks up to the much more that has still to be done. Okay. At the same time, there must be a descent too to affirm below what we have gained above. On each height we conquer, we have to turn to bring down its power and its illumination into the lower mortal movement. Okay. The discovery of the light, forever radiant on high, must correspond to the release of the same light secret below in every part, down to the deepest caves of subconscious nature. So the lower must be prepared to receive the light of the higher. That's what it is. And this pilgrimage of ascension and this descent for the labor of transformation must be inevitably a battle, a long war with ourselves and with opposing forces. Not only the darkness within yourself, but also with opposing forces. Because he says in the letters, he says that as soon as you throw out something in you which you find objectionable, let's say anger, you throw it out, it doesn't disappear. It remains in the environment and tries to come in whenever it gets a chance. So repeatedly you have to go on throwing out, throwing out, throwing out, throwing out. Okay. It's an endless task, as he says. That's why the environment also is a problem for him. And that's exactly what the ascetic is avoiding. He goes away from the environment and goes away somewhere where human beings are not there and the difficulties of the physical world are not there. But that's exactly what Sridhar is saying. We have to conquer it. We don't have to escape from it. Okay? With opposing forces around us, which, while they last, may well seem interminable. But the time comes when they can be conquered. For all our old, obscure, and ignorant nature will oppose you repeatedly and obstinately with the transforming influence. The lower darkness will be fighting all the time with the higher light, supported in its lagging unwillingness or its stark resistance by most of the established forces of environing universal nature. Now he is using a very interesting image. The powers and principalities of the ruling beings of the ignorance will not easily give up their empire. So look at the words and see what the image is and apply the image. The powers and principalities, ruling beings and empire. So the one who is in a kingdom and the king is there and they are trying to get rid of the king is not going to give up so easily. Okay? He is going to resist. That's what Sridhar is saying. Okay? 132, just 1 second. Yeah. So that's what he's saying. So look at the words, again an image. You must don't glide over the words very easily, see the image and understand. So it's like you are conquering a kingdom, but the powers who are there in the kingdom are not going to give up very easily. Look at what's happening in Russia and Ukraine. Okay, is Russia going to conquer very easily Ukraine? No. Already it is 3-4 months or maybe even more, and they are resisting. So that's exactly what happens in yoga also. The lower is not going to give up easily its empire. The ignorance is that this is my territory. The darkness is saying this is my territory. The word principality also means that. A principality is something over which it's not an absolute independent kingdom, but a principality is something that over which an outside power has got power over. Okay, so look at the word powers, principalities, and ruling beings. They are ruling, and these are the ignorance. The empire they will not give up very easily. Okay, so when you are reading Savitri, also do that. look at all the words, unveil the image and apply it to what you are reading. Then it becomes so concrete. So we can read the next paragraph. 8:15. So who will read the next one?
I can read.
Go ahead. At first.
At first, there may have to be a prolonged, often tedious and painful period of preparation and purification of all our being till it is ready and fit for an opening to a greater truth and light or to the divine influence and presence. Even when centrally fitted, prepared, open already, it will still be long before all our movements of mind, life, and body, all the multiple and conflicting members and elements of our personality consent or consenting are able to bear the difficult and exacting process of the transformation. And hardest of all, even if all in us is willing, is the struggle we shall have to carry through against the universal forces attached to the present unstable creation when we seek to make the final supramental conversion and reversal of consciousness by which the divine truth must be established in us in its plenitude and not merely what they would more readily permit and illumined ignorance.
Okay. So we'll identify each word, what he's saying, and see what he's saying. At first, in the beginning, when you start your yoga, or even when you have started quite long also, there may have to be a prolonged. You must not be impatient. It may take a long time. In the other yogas, not necessarily long time, okay, because you are eliminating all the difficulties and concentrating only on one aspect. But here you are concentrating on all the aspects, the mental aspect, the vital aspect, and even the bodily aspect. So there may be a prolonged, often tedious. It can make you very, very boring. Okay? You go on doing the same thing over and over and over again. Suppose you are trying to get rid of your anger, which is a very easy thing. There are some things which are not easy, but anger is relatively okay, less difficult. It's better to put it that way. So, but you see that again it comes back, again it comes back, again it comes back. And you ask mother to get rid of it for you, and she will help you, but you have to also receive her help. So, often tedious and painful period of preparation. It's a painful period. You sometimes undergo a lot of depression and a lot of pain also. And purification of all our being till it is ready and fit for an opening to a greater truth and light or to the divine influence and presence. So now we make a distinction between greater truth and light or to the divine influence and presence. So in the first one, some of the truth and light is coming into you, but not the full divine presence, okay, and influence. When the divine influence comes in, it is much more than just a glimpse of the truth or the light. So you're making a very clear difference between the two. And divine influence and presence are D cap, I cap, P cap. Okay? So, even when centrally fitted, prepared, open or ready, it will still be long before all our movements of mind, life and body, all the multiple and conflicting members and elements of our personality consent. They don't even consent. Okay? You resist. Or consenting are able to bear the difficult and exacting process of the transformation. So first of all, your vital refuses outright. Okay? But even when it is willing, it takes a long time for it to get transformed. And hardest of all, even if all in us is willing, there you are, even if you are willing, it takes a long time. It is a struggle we shall have to carry through against the universal forces. Even if you have conquered anger in yourself, now you have to conquer it for the others, because the anger goes out and comes in again. Anger goes out and comes in again. It is like you are in the ocean and you are trying to there's an interesting image given somewhere that with one spoon, you're trying to eliminate all the water from one spoon. Okay, how long it will take? It's interminable service, very difficult to do that. And hardest of all, even if all in us is willing, is the struggle we shall have to carry through against the universal forces attached to the present unstable creation. So, the present unstable creation is our body, mind, life, which is not transformed. And it is unstable because we are trying to change it. That's why it is unstable. Little bit of light, little bit of darkness, little bit of light, and more of darkness. So that's why unstable. When we seek to make the final supramental conversion and reversal of consciousness by which the divine truth must be established in us in its plenitude and not merely what they would be more readily permit and illumine the ignorance. So, what does he mean by illumine ignorance? He means the spiritual planes of consciousness. You are still in it because the overmind is still ignorance. So, even at that high level of overmind, which is in the spiritual planes, there is illumination. But still, you are seeing the many. Okay? You are subject to the many and the dualities also, because you see Purusha and Prakriti as separate. So, illumined ignorance, very clearly the second level of the spiritual planes of consciousness, but you have to rise to the third level, which is the supramental transformation. That takes a long time. That's what he said. Okay. So, not merely what they would readily admit, what they would more readily admit, and eliminate ignorance. You know, what he's saying is, it's relatively easier to go to the spiritual levels of consciousness, but not so easy to go to the third level of the supermind, because it has to be fully, he's using the word plenitude. Full. The word plenitude means plein, full, complete, like in French plein. Okay. Completely, no partial. So that's the work that we have to do if you are interested in the integral yoga. Okay. We still have about 10 minutes. So we can read another small one. They're all small paragraphs. So, Archanadi, maybe you can read. It is for this there is surrender and submission. That's it. Last para of the chapter. So let's read it.
Rangada in dispensary network won't be proper. It will somebody else could read.
Okay.
So I read it first because then I'm at home.
Okay, go ahead.
Shall I read?
Okay.
Yes, yes.
I do that.
It is for this that a surrender and submission to that which is beyond us, enabling the full and free working of its power, is indispensable. As that self-giving progress, the work of the sacrifice becomes easier and more powerful, and the prevention of the opposing forces lose much of its strength, impulsion, and substance. Two inner changes help most to convert what now seems difficult or impracticable into a thing possible and even sure. There takes place a coming to the front of some secret inmost soul within, which was veiled by the restless activity of the mind, by the turbulence of our vital impulses, and by the obscurity of the physical consciousness. The three powers, which in their confused combination we now call ourself. There will come about as a result, a less impeded growth of the divine presence at the center with its liberating light and effective force, and an irradiation of it into all the consciousness and subconscious ranges of our nature. These are the two signs, one marking our completed conversion and consecration to the great quest, the other, the final acceptance by the divine of our sacrifice.
So, the last paragraph of the chapter. It is for this That is surrender and submission to that which is beyond us, enabling the full and free working of its power is indispensable. Repeatedly, Sri Aurobindo says that the human power that we have with our body, mind, life is absolutely inadequate, is not at all sufficient to complete the transformation that we have. It is always the grace that works. This many others also say, not only Sri Aurobindo, but it is the divine grace that works. Your power is nothing. So openly, sometimes you have to surrender. Some parts don't believe in surrender. They believe in hard work, concentration. Okay? But here in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, surrender and submission. You let the divine do what you cannot do yourself. It is for this that is surrender and submission to that which is beyond us, enabling the full and free working of its power is indispensable. Inevitable. You have to do. You have to surrender yourself. Just as you surrender yourself to a doctor, okay, who is going to operate on you, you agree to undergo whatever they are doing. Okay, so you have to absolutely lay yourself on the table open and say, you can even use your unconscious and then do whatever you want on me. That's what you have to do with the divine. Absolutely open yourself. As that self-giving progresses, the work of the sacrifice becomes easier and more powerful, and the prevention of the opposing forces loses much of its strength, impulsion, and substance. It's not an interesting word. Prevention of the opposing forces loses much of its strength, impulsion, and substance. See what he's using: strength, impulsion, and substance. The strength corresponding to the mind, life, and matter. Substance is very clearly your body. Impulsion is very clearly your vital, because all the impulsions come from the vital. And so you can, by extension, you can say the strength is in the mind. So you, all the resistance of the mind, life, and body loses its opposing force. That's what he's saying. Not the words. He's using different words, but his meaning again body, mind, life. Okay? Strength, impulsion, and substance. Two inner changes help most to convert what now seems difficult or impracticable into a thing possible and even sure. If you have faith, it is sure to happen. Again and again, Mother writes to people, okay, that you are sure to succeed. It is sure, but the time is not guaranteed to you. It depends on your intensity of aspiration. But it is sure. Everybody is sure to transform themselves one day. There takes place a coming to the front of some secret inmost soul within, which was veiled by the restless activity of the mind, the turbulence of our vital impulses, and by the obscurity of the physical consciousness. The three powers which in their confused combination we now call ourselves. Now this is an interesting sentence, again look very carefully. There takes place a coming to the front of some secret inmost soul, is meaning very clearly the psychic being. Okay? The psychic being within, which was veiled by what? By the mind. And what is the nature of the mind? Restless activity, constant thinking, no stability at all, no power of being concentration, no, absolutely, all sorts of idiotic ideas coming into the head all the time. Restless activity of the mind. By the turbulence of our vital impulses, all sorts of emotions come which disturb the peace and quietness of the vital, and by the obscurity of the physical consciousness. The darkness of the matter is the last obstruction. These three powers, the three powers which in their confused combination we now call ourselves. We call ourselves what we think we are, body, mind, life. But they are confused. We don't even know when it's a thought or an emotion. Sometimes there's a confusion between the two. Okay? So we don't know. Many times you have a desire comes, is it coming from the mind or is it coming from the vital? One does not share at all. So this is that's why it's saying confused combination. Okay. There will come about as a result a less impeded growth of the divine presence. So he is not guaranteeing that it will come immediately, but he is saying a less impeded growth. You open yourself partially to the divine presence at the center with its liberating light and effective force and an irradiation of it into all the conscious and subconscious ranges of our nature. So the liberating, the divine presence at the center. So when Sriraumarada uses the center, he uses the central being, what he calls, is usually refers to the self. So in the beginning, your psychic must come forward and make your body, mind, life as pure as possible. The psychic is what purifies the mind and the vital, mostly the vital. It purifies. Okay. So once that purity is established in the lower, even partial purity, the divine presence can come in at the center from the liberating light and effective force. So liberating light and effective force is obviously in the higher planes of consciousness. So first of all, open yourself inwardly, horizontally, and then the upper light, the vertical light from above, we can descend into you. That's what he's saying. It will liberate you. Your consciousness will rise out of the body, mind, life and effective force, and an irradiation of it into all the conscious and subconscious ranges of our nature. The word irradiation is very interesting. Now, it slowly the light enters into and fills all the parts. That's what. These are the two signs, one marking our complete conversion and consecration to the great quest, the other, the final acceptance by the divine of our sacrifice. So what are the two signs? Number one, the horizontal psychic transformation. Number two, the rising to the spiritual lanes of consciousness, the level 2. Now you are ready for the final, you are ready for the final acceptance of the divine of our sacrifice. You are ready for the supramental. It's not going to be done, but he is referring very guarded language here to the psychic transformation, the spiritual transformation, and the last is the supramental transformation. So he has spoken here only of the two signs. First is the horizontal transformation, the psychic coming forward and purifying the outer nature, and now we are ready for the quest. Look at the words he is using. He is saying the first is a completed conversion and consecration to the great quest. What is the great quest? Looking for the divine consciousness. The second one is the final acceptance of the divine by our sacrifice. Now you are ready for the third level, the superman, when the consciousness rises to the spiritual planes of consciousness. Only the psychic will not take you, nor will the spiritual planes of consciousness only. It has to be a combination of the psychic and the spiritual planes of consciousness. Then you are ready for the final acceptance of the divine. He is now saying, now you are ready for this ascent to the highest level. So that completes this chapter. And next is chapter 5, the ascent of the sacrifice. So what is the sacrifice? Okay. This is he is going to explain. He already explained sacrifice. Now he is going to the works of knowledge, the psychic being. The works of knowledge. How you, in the field of knowledge, how do you do karma yoga? That's the thing, and the psychic being. So it's absolutely 8:35 on the dot. So we'll take up this next time. So Sumki, make a note, chapter 5. We have to read. The works.
Yes.
Okay. So, au revoir.
Merci beaucoup.
Have a nice day, everybody.
Au revoir,
Thank you,
Rangada.
Rangada.